Hi everyone and welcome back. This is the second video in my series on speech writing, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to use direct address, collective pronouns and emotive language. Direct address is a really simple yet powerful device that you can use in a speech. Direct address simply means addressing your audience. You can say, I'm speaking to you this evening because, or you could say, is this something that you want to change? When overused, however, direct address loses its power. It becomes repetitive, and it could even take away from the overall effect of your speech. One of the most effective ways to use direct address is at the beginning of your speech, talking directly to your audience. This is a good way to engage your listeners and draw their attention in. Another way to use direct address is to pair it with a question. So this is a way of making your listener reflect on what it is that you're saying. So for example, climate change is a problem that affects the entire planet. The solution to climate change must be a global one. But what about you? What about your life? What can you change? You'll also notice here that there's a triple involved. If you haven't watched the first video where I talk about triples and the rule of three, the link is in the description below. This example also shows another way of using direct address to good effect. Climate change is a big idea. It's a global challenge. It affects people all over the globe. It's always useful in speeches to bring these big abstract ideas back to individuals and relate it to their own lives. So another example might be, homelessness in Ireland is a problem we simply should not be talking about. It should not exist in Ireland in the 21st century. In years to come, when our children and grandchildren look back and ask, why did we let it go on? Why didn't we stop it? What can you say that you did about it? The next technique I want to look at is the use of collective pronouns. Again, this is a fairly simple device, but it all depends how it's used. Collective pronouns are words like we and our and us. And the idea here is to draw your listener in and make them feel part of something bigger. There are many examples of this device, and again, like direct address, it's important not to overuse it. But one of the best examples is a real-life one from a speech that Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, gave shortly before he became president for the first time. He said, "Our new majority can end the tax breaks for corporations that ship our jobs overseas and put a middle-class tax cut in the pockets of working Americans who deserve it. We can stop sending our children to schools with corridors of shame and start putting them on a pathway to success. We can stop talking about how great teachers are and start rewarding them for their greatness by giving them more pay and more support. We can do this with our new majority. We can harness the ingenuity of farmers and scientists, citizens and entrepreneurs to free this nation from the tyranny of oil and save our planet from a point of no return. And when I am President of the United States, we will end this war in Iraq and bring our troops home." So notice in particular that last line. He says, when I am president, we will end this war. He's inviting his audience to be part of his presidency. He's giving every single listener a stake in what is to come. It's a really great example of how to create a sense of unity and a sense of togetherness through the words you choose in a speech. The last thing that I want to look at is the use of emotive language. So emotive language is words and phrases that create an emotion in the reader or the listener. Even more simply, it's language that gets a reaction. So often the most engaging part of a speech is the part that makes you feel something, and that comes from the words chosen by the author. So notice the difference in the following example. By making children wear school uniforms, you are doing a very bad thing. It's not fair. And by forcing people against their will to wear school uniforms, you are infringing upon their rights. It's inhumane. So here we are using the word forcing rather than making because it has more negative associations and connotations. We've also included the against their will part to emphasize the idea of free will and people rather than children, because lots of people might be okay with the idea of forcing children to do things, but the word people, which children are, fits more in with the idea of rights and free will. As we can also see, you are doing a very bad thing is quite limited, and instead we've tried to be more emotive by again talking about human rights and saying that this decision infringes on them. The use of the word infringe is good here as well because it's a word we often hear in connection with rights. The final sentence, it's not fair, is much weaker than it's inhumane, because it's not fair is a common complaint of young people, specifically to do with uniforms, and it's not specific enough. How is it unfair? The use of the word inhumane, however, links back to this idea of people and rights, and it's a strong statement on its own. As you can see, the language chosen is very important, and choosing language that creates an emotional response in your listener is much more effective. One of the keys to emotive language is to have a broad vocabulary, and one of the best ways to do this is to read widely so that you can collect lots of new words. There are also vocabulary lists. I've put a link to one in the description that you can download for free. That can be useful at helping you develop a sophisticated vocabulary and to use lots of emotive language. I hope that you found this video useful, and in the next one we're going to be looking at a few more techniques, specifically statistics, expert opinion and anecdotes, and how best to use them.